The crystal towers of Villani Prime flickered with red warning lights as sirens wailed across the beautiful city. Ambassador Thane pressed his long fingers against the tall window, watching ships flee into the dark sky. His people had built their city to be pretty, not strong. The flowing walls and gentle curves looked weak now that death was coming. "The outer worlds are gone," said Commander Vex, his voice shaking. His blue feathers had turned gray from fear and no sleep. Kepler 442b fell 3 days ago. The swarm ate everything. The cities, the forests, even the oceans. Nothing left but dead rock. The Vortax swarm had come from the edge of space 18 months ago. They were like metal insects, billions of them eating planets like hungry animals. Their ships were ugly, but there were so many of them that even the best defenses could not stop them. "What about our peace ships?" Thane asked, but he already knew the answer would be bad. Dead or running away. Our Harmony ships were made for peace, not war. Our stun weapons just make the bugs angry. Vex's feathers lay flat on his head, showing how scared he was. "High Counselor, we need to think about other choices." Thane's people, like most in their group of planets, had stopped fighting wars long ago. Their machines were made for peace and understanding. They had no big weapons, no war plans, no idea how to fight something that wanted to kill everything. "The computers finished looking through all the star maps," said Technician Mora from her workstation. "There are some fighting species out there, but most are too far away or already fighting the swarm themselves." "What about the Death Worlds?" Vex asked, not wanting to say it. "Maybe some violent people survived their own wars." Mora's tentacles moved over her controls. "There is one place. They call it Sol 3, but the people there call it Earth. The reports say their whole planet is a Class 12 death world. The gravity alone would crush most of us." Thane looked at the information floating in the air. Everything about the planet seemed made to kill. Bad weather, dangerous animals, ground that shook and broke, deadly light from their sun. But somehow, smart beings had not just lived there but grown strong. "How advanced are they?" he asked. "Not very advanced like us, but learning fast. They can fly in space and split atoms. But their culture files are scary. They have been fighting wars their whole history." The room went quiet except for the sound of another swarm scout ship flying overhead. Through the windows, Thane could see smoke rising from the factory areas where the first attackers had landed. The swarm had already begun landing on their world. Soon there would be too many to count, and his beautiful, peaceful people would be food for hungry metal bugs. "Send the message," he decided. "Tell Sol 3 what is happening to us. If they are as violent as the reports say, maybe they will know what to do." "Sir, are you sure?" Mora's voice was scared. "Once we talk to a Death World species, once we let them know we exist. The swarm will reach our main worlds in 40 days, Thane stopped her. "We can die keeping our peaceful ways, or we can ask for help from beings who understand war. Choose." The big communication dish started working, sending into space the first message Earth would ever get from other thinking beings. It was a cry for help from people who had never learned to fight, asking for aid from a world that had never learned to stop fighting. The message flew through space faster than light, carrying with it the location of Villani Prime and the desperate hope that somewhere in the dark, someone would hear and come to help. 3 days later, human ships appeared at the edge of their star system. But as Thane would soon learn, asking for help from Earth meant getting exactly what you asked for. The humans had not come to make friends or learn about alien culture. They had not come to negotiate or find peaceful solutions. They had come to kill the thing that was trying to kill the people who had called them. The beautiful crystal city of Villani Prime had sent out a call for salvation, and salvation was coming. But it wore armor, carried weapons that could crack planets, and had been shaped by a world that taught its children that sometimes the only way to save something was to be willing to destroy everything that threatened it. The humans were 3 days away from showing the galaxy what 4 billion years of evolution on a death world had created. They were coming not as diplomats or explorers or peaceful visitors. They were coming as destroyers, because sometimes that was exactly what the universe needed. Admiral James Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Devastator, looking at the alien ships through screens that painted everything in red and yellow. The alien ships were beautiful with smooth curves and pretty lines, like someone cared more about how they looked than how they fought. They were also completely helpless. "Ma'am, we are getting a message from the lead ship," said Lieutenant Kate Mills from her station. "They want permission to do a formal first meeting ceremony." Reeves did not look away from the battle screen. "Tell them we do not have time for parties. We came here to kill something." "Where is it?" The alien voice came through the speakers, turned into English by their translator. "Honored guests from the Sol system, we are very grateful you answered our cry for help. As per Galaxy Rule 7 Alpha, We request a formal meeting of culture representatives to establish. Cut the message, Reeves ordered. She turned to her weapons officer, Commander Mike Harrison. What do you see? The alien fleet has 43 ships, about 12,000 tons each. No weapons we can detect, very weak shields. They appear to be made from some kind of crystal stuff. Probably very pretty, definitely fragile. And the enemy? Harrison's face got darker. Long-distance sensors are picking up movement in the outer system. Whatever is coming, there is a lot of it. Time until they get here, 6 hours. The communication system beeped again. This time, a different alien voice, more scared and less formal. Please, Admiral Reeves, we understand you may have different customs, but surely we can take a few moments to establish basic diplomatic rules? We have prepared a cultural exchange presentation, gifts representing the finest achievements of our civilization. Reeves pressed the talk button herself. Ambassador, whatever your name is, you called for help. We came. In 6 hours, you are going to be under attack by something that wants to eat your planet. I suggest you get out of our way and let us work. The answer came back fast and shocked. But surely you wish to understand our culture first? To establish mutual respect and common ground? We have much to offer in terms of artistic achievement, philosophical enlightenment. Lady, I do not care about your philosophy. I care about your fighting situation. Reeves pulled up the star maps on the main screen. Harrison, start planning firing solutions on likely approach paths. Mills, signal the fleet. Combat formation Beta 7. Around them, the human task force began to spread out with machine-like precision. Unlike the flowing, smooth movements of the alien ships, the human ships moved with purpose and barely hidden violence. Their hulls were scarred from old battles, covered with weapon mounts and sensor arrays designed for one job: finding and destroying enemies. Another message from the aliens, this time confused and worried. Admiral, your ships appear to be taking an aggressive posture. Are you planning to attack us? We are the ones who called for help. Commander Sarah Davis, Reeves' second-in-command, leaned over the Admiral's shoulder. Ma'am, I think they are expecting us to be nice. Maybe hold hands and sing songs about galaxy brotherhood. Then they called the wrong species. Reeves opened the channel again. Listen carefully because I am only going to explain this once. We are not diplomats. We are not explorers. We are not here to make friends or learn about your culture. We are here because something is trying to kill you, and we are very, very good at killing things that try to kill people we are helping. Now get your ships out of the combat zone before you get hurt. The silence that followed went on for nearly a minute. When the alien answer came, the voice was small and uncertain. But how do we establish trust? How do we know you will not simply replace one threat with another? Admiral Reeves looked around at her bridge crew. These were men and women who had spent their lives preparing for and fighting wars across human space. Each of them carried scars, physical and mental, from fights the peaceful aliens could not even imagine. They were products of a world that had made them in fire and violence, shaped them into tools of calculated destruction. You do not, she replied simply. You called us because you are dying. We came because we are good at preventing that. Trust is a luxury you cannot afford right now. The battle screen beeped. Long-distance sensors had detected the leading edge of the swarm. It was a writhing mass of ships and creatures that blocked out whole sections of space. All ships, this is Admiral Reeves. Prepare for battle. Remember, these things do not surrender, they do not negotiate, and they do not stop. Show them what a death world teaches its children. Behind them, the alien ships retreated to what they hoped was a safe distance. Their crews watched in horrified fascination as humanity prepared for war. The aliens had expected diplomats, explorers, maybe scientists interested in learning about new cultures. They had expected beings like themselves, who valued art and philosophy and peaceful solutions to problems. What they got instead were the products of 4 billion years of evolution on a world where everything tried to kill everything else. They got humans who had learned that sometimes the only way to protect something was to be absolutely ruthless in destroying anything that threatened it. The beautiful, crystal ships of the Confederation floated in space, their crews finally beginning to understand what they had summoned from the depths of the galaxy. They had called for help, and help had answered. But it came wearing armor and carrying weapons, crewed by beings who viewed total war not as a failure of civilization, but as a tool to be used when civilization itself was threatened. The first wave of the Vortex swarm hit the human defensive line like a living asteroid field. Thousands of biomechanical ships, each one a writhing mass of metal, shell, and exposed brain tissue, rushed toward the human fleet with the hunger of a disease. Admiral Reeves watched the battle screen with cold satisfaction as her plan worked. Fire. The space around the human fleet exploded in coordinated violence. Unlike the pretty energy weapons used by most galaxy civilizations, humanity had never stopped using bullets and bombs. Railgun slugs, each one shot at nearly the speed of light, tore through swarm ships like bullets through paper. Nuclear missiles, guided by targeting systems that could track hundreds of targets at once, exploded in carefully planned patterns designed to kill as much as possible. First attack results, 67% kill ratio, reported Commander Harrison. Remaining swarm forces still coming. Time until contact, 43 minutes. From the alien ships safely positioned behind the human line, came a stream of increasingly panicked messages. Admiral Reeves, you are firing nuclear weapons in a populated system. The radiation alone could. Could what? Reeves cut them off. Could kill the bugs trying to eat you? Good. That is the point. Commander Davis pulled up a battle subplot. Ma'am, look at this. The swarm is not just attacking. They are learning. Watch their formation. On the screen, the mass of swarm ships began to shift, forming into a pattern that kept them safer from human weapons while letting them overwhelm defensive positions better. It was crude, but it worked. It was like a mindless charge, but a smart mindless charge. Clever bugs, Reeves said quietly. Harrison used Protocol 7. Ma'am, Protocol 7 is? I know what it is. Do it. Harrison hesitated for a moment, then began entering commands. Around the human fleet, the space itself seemed to change. What the aliens could not see were the thousands of mines humanity had been laying since their arrival. Not fancy energy devices or complicated gravity weapons, but simple, brutal explosives designed to kill anything within a specific distance. The mines activated as the swarm passed through them, creating an expanding sphere of destruction that ate entire sections of the alien formation. But even as thousands of swarm ships died, thousands more pressed forward, their hunger unchanged. Second wave coming, Mills announced. These ones are bigger. Reeves studied the new contacts. Where the first wave had been relatively small fighter ships, the second wave showed massive bioships, each one easily the size of a human battleship. Their hulls were scarred and pitted, suggesting they had survived previous battles. They are learning, she realized. The swarm is actually learning from our tactics. From the alien flagship came Ambassador Thane's voice. Admiral, perhaps now would be a good time to attempt communication? To see if we can negotiate. Negotiate. Commander Davis laughed harshly. Sir, have you been watching the same battle we have? These things literally eat planets. What exactly do you think you are going to negotiate with them about? Food preferences? The second wave struck the human line with devastating force. Several alien observers watched in horror as a human destroyer, the UES Retribution, was overwhelmed by swarm boarding pods. Instead of trying to fight off the boarders or evacuate the crew, Captain Robert Thompson made a decision that showed human military thinking perfectly. All ships, this is Thompson. Ship is compromised. Starting core breach in 30 seconds. Honor and glory. The Retribution's nuclear reactor went critical, taking itself and 3 swarm bioships with it in a ball of fusion fire that lit up half the system. Barbaric, whispered one of the alien observers. Effective, Admiral Reeves corrected. Mills, signal Captain Brown on the Vengeance. I want his ship to ram that cluster of bioships at grid 77. Full nuclear ramming protocol. Ma'am, that will destroy the Vengeance, Mills pointed out. I know. Do it anyway. The human fleet began doing what the aliens could only describe as systematic suicide attacks. Ship after ship deliberately sacrificed itself to take out larger swarm formations, their crews singing battle songs as they rode nuclear fire into death. But the tactic was working. The swarm, for all its numbers and ability to adapt, had never fought an enemy willing to trade individual ships for tactical advantage. Their formation began to waver, then break apart entirely as the survivors fled toward the outer system. Chase them, Reeves ordered. We do not let any of them escape to report our tactics. Admiral, came Thane's shocked voice over the comm, surely now that they are retreating? They are not retreating, Reeves interrupted. They are regrouping. And when they come back they will be ready for everything we just showed them. The only way to win against an enemy that learns is to make sure there are no survivors to learn. The human fleet surged forward in pursuit, leaving behind a debris field that stretched across half the star system and a group of alien observers who were beginning to realize that their saviors might be more terrifying than anything the galaxy had ever produced. As the last swarm ship disappeared into hyperspace with 3 human destroyers chasing it, Commander Davis turned to her admiral. Think they are starting to understand what they asked for? Reeves looked at the battle screen, where the positions of 17 destroyed human ships were marked with small memorial icons. They asked for someone who could fight a war. They got exactly what they wanted. Behind them, the alien fleet followed at a respectful distance, their crews struggling to process what they had just witnessed. They had seen the systematic application of violence as a tool of survival, wielded by beings who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill or be killed. The galaxy had called for help, and help had come in the form of beings who understood that sometimes the only way to save lives was to be willing to take them without hesitation or mercy. 3 weeks after the Battle of Valani Prime, the alien leadership gathered in an emergency meeting aboard their remaining command ship, the Crystal Harmony. The beautiful conference room, with its flowing walls of living crystal and seats designed for peaceful thinking, felt wrong for the discussions taking place. Ambassador Thane reviewed the battle reports with growing worry. 15 swarm-held systems taken back in 18 days. Estimated enemy deaths, 700,000 ships and creatures. Estimated civilian deaths from human operations, 2.4 million. 2.4 million of our own people, Commander Vex said clearly, his blue feathers lying flat against his skull showing deep distress. The human's definition of acceptable losses is disturbing. The floating screen showed the Kepler 438 system, recently freed by Admiral Reeves' task force. Where once a thriving colony of 6 million Hizari had maintained their crystal gardens and philosophy schools, nothing remained but a radioactive wasteland and the broken hulks of both swarm and human ships. They used nuclear bombing to sterilize 3 entire continents, reported technician Mora, her tentacles shaking as she worked with the data. When we protested, Admiral Reeves stated, and I quote, "Dead bugs cannot come back to bite you. Dead civilians cannot be infected and turned into bioweapons. Sometimes the math is ugly, but it is still math." The room's environmental systems automatically adjusted the lighting to calm the growing worry of the assembled beings, but the soothing blue light did little to ease their concerns. "There have been other incidents," Vex continued reluctantly. "The humans have established what they call forward operating bases in 17 liberated systems. These bases are heavily fortified and appear to be permanent." When questioned, Commander Davis stated they were strategic assets for ongoing operations. Ongoing operations? Thane's 6 eyes narrowed. The swarm has been driven from those systems. What operations could they possibly need? The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Patricia Wells, the human liaison officer assigned to the alien command ship, had been quietly watching from the corner of the room. Unlike the other humans they had met, Wells seemed almost diplomatic, if one ignored the plasma weapon at her hip and the combat modifications clearly visible in her cybernetic left arm. "If I may," Wells said, stepping forward with the predatory grace that marked all of her species. "You are thinking like prey animals. The swarm is not gone. It is regrouping. Those bases are not occupation forces. They are staging areas for the next phase of operations." Next phase. Thane stood, his formal robes rustling with anger. "We asked you to repel an invasion, not conduct a campaign of extermination." Wells smiled, and the expression somehow made her look more dangerous rather than less. "Ambassador, with respect, you do not understand what you are dealing with. The swarm is not a conventional military force. It is a galaxy-level extinction event. You do not negotiate with cancer and you do not make peace with a plague. You eradicate it completely or it comes back stronger." The floating screen shifted to show long-range sensor readings from the galactic core. The data was broken and hard to interpret, but the meaning was clear. Massive biomechanical structures, planet-sized breeding facilities, industrial complexes devoted entirely to making war. "Admiral Reeves has located what we believe to be the primary swarm hive clusters," Wells continued. 17 core worlds, each one supporting a breeding population in the trillions. The swarm forces you have been fighting? They are just scouts. The real invasion has not started yet. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft sounds of the ship's living systems. Finally, Commander Vex spoke. "What are you proposing?" "Total war," Wells replied without hesitation. "We take the fight to them. We destroy every hive world, every breeding facility, every trace of swarm genetics in the galaxy. Complete species extinction." "That is genocide," Thane whispered. "Yes, it is," Wells agreed cheerfully. "And it is the only way to ensure they never threaten another civilization. The alternative is to wait here while they rebuild their forces and come back with 10 times the numbers." Technician Morris' tentacles worked frantically at her console. "The energy requirements alone," To sterilize 17 worlds would require weapons of unimaginable destructive power. We have those weapons, Wells said. We have been building them since we learned about the swarm. Planet crackers, stellar initiators, quantum cascade bombs. Tools designed for one purpose: to make sure our enemies can never threaten us again. The alien leaders exchanged glances, their various forms of silent communication creating a complex dance of concern, fear, and desperate hope. They had wanted salvation. They had received exterminators. The cost in resources, in ships, in lives. Vex began. Will be significant, Wells acknowledged. We estimate 40% casualties for the human fleet. Acceptable losses for a definitive solution. Acceptable losses. Ambassador Thane repeated the phrase as if trying to understand a concept from an alien language, which he realized he was. Captain Wells, do you understand what you are saying? You are talking about sacrificing millions of your own people. I am talking about saving trillions of everyone else's people, Wells corrected. That is what soldiers do, Ambassador. We die so civilians can live. It is not pretty, it is not noble, and it is sure as hell not diplomatic. But it works. The screen shifted again, showing Admiral Reeves' fleet gathering at the edge of alien space. Hundreds of human vessels, their hulls bristling with weapons that violated every known treaty of civilized warfare, prepared for what their commanders were calling Operation Final Solution. You have 72 hours to evacuate any systems along our projected attack route, Wells continued. After that, we commence offensive operations with or without alien approval. This is not a request, Ambassador. It is a courtesy notification. As the human officer left the room, the alien leaders sat in stunned silence, realizing they had summoned forces beyond their control or understanding. They had asked for help, and help had come in the form of beings who viewed total annihilation as a reasonable solution to a military problem. The final battle began at the edge of the Vortak Prime system, where 17 worlds had been turned into a vast biological factory devoted entirely to war. Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge of her flagship, now the U.S. Annihilation, studying screens that showed the true size of the swarm's presence. Sensor analysis complete, reported Commander Harrison, his voice tight with barely controlled shock. Combined population estimates for all 17 worlds, approximately 43 trillion individual bioforms. Defensive installations, beyond counting. Ma'am, they have turned entire planets into weapons. The main screen showed Vortak Prime itself. A world that had been consumed so completely by the swarm that no trace of its original life remained. The planet's surface moved with biomechanical structures that stretched from pole to pole, breathing atmosphere that glowed with living light. Around it, a shell of defensive stations formed a sphere of metal and flesh that extended well beyond the planet's natural moon orbits. Fleet status? Reeves asked. 437 vessels ready for combat operations, replied Commander Davis. Ammunition? Full loads of everything we have got, plus the special packages from Earth Command. Crew morale? They know what we are here to do and they are ready to do it. From the alien observation ship, safely positioned at the system's edge, came Ambassador Thane's voice. Admiral Reeves, surely you can see that a direct assault on such a fortified position is impossible. Perhaps we could attempt to establish communication, to find some common ground. Ambassador, Reeves interrupted, I am going to explain something to you one final time. These things do not want territory. They do not want resources. They do not want to rule the galaxy. They want to eat it. Every living thing in it. There is no common ground with an extinction event. She turned to her weapons officer. Lieutenant Thompson, arm the stellar cascade devices. Ma'am, Thompson replied, devices armed and ready. Confirm authorization for planet killer deployment. Confirmed. Target selection, all 17 worlds. Simultaneous detonation on my mark. The stellar cascade devices were humanity's answer to the problem of fortified worlds. Each one contained a carefully engineered chain reaction that would destabilize a planet's core, turning the world itself into a weapon against everything in its vicinity. It was a technology that violated every known principle of civilized warfare, and it was exactly what the situation required. Admiral, came a new voice over the communications array. This time it was High Counselor Zerain of the Alien Assembly, speaking directly from the capital world. We cannot be party to genocide on this scale. We withdraw our authorization for military action. Reeves did not even glance at the communication station. Harrison cut all channels to alien vessels. We are going dark. The human fleet surged forward into the Vortak system like a plague of their own, their ships spreading out in formations designed not for glory or honor, but for maximum destructive efficiency. The swarm response was immediate and overwhelming. Millions of bioships rose from the 17 worlds like antibodies responding to an infection. Contact, reported Tactical. Enemy strength, approximately 2 million vessels, various classifications. They're not trying to stop us. They're trying to swarm us. Then let them come close, Reeves replied. All ships implement Protocol Omega. Full nuclear engagement, maximum dispersion pattern. Remember, we do not need to win a battle. We just need to survive long enough to complete the mission. What followed was less a battle than a mutual annihilation event. The human fleet, outnumbered nearly 5,000 to 1, fought with the desperate fury of a species that had learned to survive by eliminating threats completely. Nuclear warheads detonated in carefully planned sequences, creating kill zones that consumed entire swarm formations. Ships that were damaged beyond repair immediately rammed the nearest enemy clusters, their crews singing the ancient battle hymns of a dozen human cultures as they rode expanding fireballs into oblivion. Cascade devices in position, reported Thompson, blood streaming from his nose as the bridge shook under repeated impacts. All 17 targets locked and confirmed. Fleet status. Reeves asked, though she could see the answer on her tactical display. Of the 437 vessels that had entered the system, fewer than 50 remained combat effective. Ma'am, Davis said quietly, we have done what we came to do. The devices are in position. We can end this. Admiral Reeves looked around the bridge at her surviving crew. Men and women who had followed her into a battle they knew would kill them because it was necessary. They had come from a world where survival meant being willing to do what others could not, and they had proven that lesson on a galactic stage. All remaining ships, she broadcast on the fleet frequency, it has been an honor serving with you. For humanity, for the galaxy, for everyone who gets to live because we were here today. She turned to Thompson. Execute. The stellar cascade devices detonated simultaneously across 17 worlds, each one triggering a chain reaction that turned an entire planet into a miniature star. The expanding waves of destruction consumed the swarm's bioships, their defensive stations, their breeding facilities, and every trace of their presence in the galaxy. When the energy storm finally faded, nothing remained of the Vortex system but cooling plasma and scattered debris. The swarm, 43 trillion bioforms representing millions of years of evolution and expansion, had been erased from existence in less than 40 minutes. 6 months later, Ambassador Thane stood in the memorial hall aboard Alien Station Alpha, looking at the simple metal plaque that had been installed at the entrance. It bore no elegant script, no flowing artistic elements, no philosophical inscriptions about the nature of peace and war. Just names. The names of 437 human vessels and their crews, who had died to save a galaxy that had never asked to meet them. The humans had withdrawn their surviving forces to Earth and refused all contact since the battle. They had ignored every attempt at diplomatic outreach, every offer of cultural exchange, every invitation to join the galactic community. They had left behind only the memorial plaque and a simple message: problem solved. Do not call us again. The galaxy was at peace because somewhere out there, on a small blue death world, lived beings who understood that sometimes peace could only be maintained by those willing to wage total war.